Feynman is going to be an open source development platform, and Feynman was a Nobel Prize winning physicist who worked on the grand unified theory. So the idea is that we're trying to build something that's sort of like a grand unified theory of software development. So maybe a little too grandiose, but I like him. We actually have the same birthday. I studied physics too, so we're trying to make a platform to help with collaborative development. So there are tools that exist right now. If anybody's familiar with Sourcecast and CollabNet, it's actually not many people use it because it's extremely expensive. The only company I know that uses it is American Express and Motorola. There's Sourceforge, which I'm not sure how much their commercial version costs, but I've never been very happy using it on Sourceforge projects. The only thing that's ever existed was Tigris. I'm not sure if anybody has ever used that or heard of it. It is what Collab's commercial product is now. So Tigris was open and has become Sourcecast and is no longer free. So there's nothing really open source in this space to actually help people set up a development environment quickly. So we want to try and be able to set up a development environment in under 30 minutes. So right now we're using Red Hat Kickstart installed, and we're looking at Ubuntu. Mark Shuttleworth came to ApacheCon, so I chatted with him for a little while, and they seemed interested in actually putting something together with Ubuntu. We don't want to be tied to any one operating system, but we're probably going to start with the Linuxes first, and it looks like it'll be Red Hat Enterprise, because that's what a lot of my clients use, and that's what some of the other collaborators use. E-Trade is one person who's interested in, and they use Red Hat for Enterprise. So just as Maven, in a smaller scale, tries to provide some patterns for infrastructure for doing development and managing your project content, like application sources, test sources, and documentation. Feynman tries to go another level up at a macro level and actually tries to provide patterns for all the systems you might need for doing development. So the components in Feynman are meant to be pluggable. We have lots of different applications right now in different systems, and it looks something like this. So the current system we have now that we're trying to build has email lists, which uses the EasyMLM. It's a QMail package. Apache uses it. But these are all what we've tried with first, and this doesn't mean that we can't actually use other systems. So someone might want to use Mailman instead of EasyMLM. Right now we're using Confluence because we get free licenses, so if open source projects wanted to use it, it's easy enough for them to get a license. Jira, that's what Maven has used from the beginning. Again, it can be substituted with something else. We're actually looking at a system called Trac. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the tool. It's written in Python. It's sort of a hybrid of an issue tracking system and a wiki. And it actually has a very nice continuum plugin. An IAM server. There is a Java version of an IAM server, but I can't get the author to cooperate as of yet. Fisheye, which is another commercial tool. There are no open source equivalents really of Fisheye. If anybody's used a Fisheye or Crucible in the beta program, that's another system we're trying to set up. Forum management using Jive. We're looking at JForum, but I have a relationship with Patrick Lightbody, who's the web work developer, and he actually used to work with Jive, so I have access to licenses for that as well. An IRC server. Email, we use QMail right now. As of yet, it's still the only email package that has never been cracked by anyone. Everything else is being compromised. Blog management, we're using Pebble, which is a Java application written in Spring. User management, we're using the Apache directory server project, so to try and provide a base level user management system using LDAP. SEM, we've just started with Subversion. Repository management, Maven Repository Manager. The project creator, so what that particular tool is there, we don't actually want to tie the system to only working with Maven. And the POM is actually not limited just to Java. We actually develop C projects and C++ projects for clients of ours, and we actually have people developing .NET projects using Maven. So what we want to do with the project creator for our particular need, we actually want someone to be able to create an overall top-level POM for all their projects, an organizational POM, and some of their project POMs. And I'm not sure if the manual demonstrated the way you drag a POM into Continuum and it sets up the projects. We'd like to be able to drag a POM into the project creator and actually have it walk through all the other pieces of the system. In the POM, we specify, well, some of those things don't apply, but the wiki, the issue management system, any of the source control versions, when there's different tools available, say CVS, which would be described in your POM, you would be able to drag a POM onto the project creator, and it will actually set up the infrastructure for all those things for your project. So the idea for this originally came from some of the tools that were developed by Codehouse. There are ActiveMQ started it like their Xfire, if anybody uses it for web services, is a Codehouse. And we had a very neat system where we could actually set up all these things, or most of these things, for projects in about 5 minutes. So when new projects came along to Codehouse, wanted to set up their issue tracking system or mailing lists, we could actually set it up quite quickly. But what we were missing was some of the metadata for the project. So someone can either walk through a web interface to create a POM, or if they want to use their IDE, some of the tools we'll have in the future to be able to make the POM, or if they just wanted to make the POM by hand, they could, and throw it into the system and actually have a fully functioning infrastructure for a project in a very short period of time. So I just snuck that one in. Business quality dashboard will be in there. And the team project server, which is something that Mergier is working on. And what the team project server would actually be is sort of the centralized place to actually gather all the information. And to configure some of the other applications. So if anybody's familiar with Rendezvous and Apple, which is sort of the zero-comp protocol for setting up different services, so on an Apple machine, all the applications are zero-comp enabled, so they actually broadcast the message, and Rendezvous, or sample Bollinger on the Mac, actually syncs up all the applications and configures them all automatically with default settings. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is have a project server where we sort of specify all the policies that you want for Continuum or your Maven repository manager or any of these other applications that you want. And one of the things we're trying to add to each and every one of these little projects is little plugins or extensions that actually work with the zero-comp mechanism. So once you've used your project server to set up all these bits and pieces of your project, the project server can actually broadcast and send out a message, discover all the other services that are running as part of the infrastructure, and actually send all the configuration information to and keep them updated. So by default, if Continuum and the repository manager were running on the same network, with some sensible defaults, they would actually send each other their configuration information and be running. You could obviously tweak it if you wanted to, but to try and have a base system up and running with some sensible defaults is part of the strategy of getting all this working within 30 minutes. So some of the future components, as I mentioned, we're using a lot of commercial components right now because a lot of the companies provide commercial or free licenses to open source projects. So this would still work even though it's not ideal for us. But there are just some systems that just have no counterparts. Things like Confluence could probably be replaced, and even Jira, but things like Fisheye are probably are very sophisticated and would probably take some time to be replaced in the open source community. Is that? Oh, great. Fisheye's it. So some of the participants, Mergier and all the Maven products, we want to be able to put into this platform. Logic Lays, who are the ActiveMQ and Service Mix developers. eTrade, who is one of Mergier's clients, is very much into trying to streamline their infrastructure. They have about 700 developers and 5,000 machines that they use all the time. So they want some system to be able to manage all these machines. Contigix, they're the company that actually provides the hardware hosting for Codehouse and for Maven.org. And the first base system is one of their setups. Even though they're a commercial company, they actually open source all their infrastructure. So they create a Red Hat enterprise install using Kickstart, and they make all their scripts and packages available to anybody who wants to use them. So that's what we're using for our first version. Auto Originate, which is a company that's started by Patrick Lightbody. He's one of the WebWork developers. Has become the Struts Action 2 framework at Apache now that's merged. He's done a lot of work with LDAP and automated testing systems. So he's interested in the infrastructure for his application. So we're hoping that the base platform is developed by all these people, and people will be able to build either extended in the open source community, or people will be able to add commercial applications on top of it. So one of the problems I think that happened, or one of the mistakes that companies like Colab made, was actually removing Tigris from the open source community. I know from people who are working there, it's been a nightmare trying to maintain it with a small team. The people who started the project, we feel that infrastructure is common to everybody, and everybody will have something to contribute. There's no reason why the open source project can't be developed as well as people who want to make commercial products based on top of it. Will only make it better. Red Hat, I've talked to the David Ludecorp, who's the emerging technologies lead at Red Hat. They're interested in trying to work together. They developed a tool called Puppet for anybody who's used Red Hat systems. It's a workflow configuration management system. So we're trying to use Puppet when a machine starts up to actually grab all the information from LDAP to actually set up the machine properly. It's written in, it's actually a Ruby tool. ThoughtWorks, possibly. I talked to Joe Wallens, who's one of the guys who wrote EcoContainer and QDocs. He now works at Google, so that's where the ThoughtWorks Google thing, I talked to him a long time ago, and now he works at Google. So I've talked to some of Google's infrastructure people, and they have probably the most amazing infrastructure I've ever seen in my entire life. Across their entire network, when they go to deploy an application through the entire network, they actually have an extremely sophisticated system. You basically drop a bundle in a directory and it's deployed to 10,000 machines in 5 seconds. So Maven's not that fast, but we're hoping that they will actually look at Maven, because they actually have a declarative build system that's used for all of Google. When? We're shooting for September 1st for probably a very rough alpha. It will be usable, but there's not going to be any bells and whistles, and we essentially just want to get it out for people to look at. So we'll probably make announcements on the users list, and I'm probably going to start blogging about it as the base system is there, and someone who wants to hack around with it and get it working, but it's still really rough.